You'll probably already know what to expect from J.J. Abrams' Star Trek sequel. If you enjoyed the action-packed reboot of the series back in 2009, I think it's safe to say that you will enjoy this one too. It's a fairly entertaining summer sci-fi action flick that will certainly keep audiences entertained. But original Star Trek fans can't help but feel that the series has been dumbed down from its original themes of diplomacy and exploration of space to essentially reducing to this blow stuff up mentality just to supposedly inject a little bit of life into a sci-fi franchise that was apparently running low on gas. This method did work for the original reboot film back in 2009, and Star Trek Into Darkness similarly follows in that movie's footsteps. Make no mistake though, this is still a very entertaining Star Trek movie if you are just craving for pure sci-fi action. But if you have seen any of the older Star Trek movies or TV series, you will understand some of the concerns that this movie will bring about to the franchise. Old Trekkies will definitely recognize this film as a reimagining of the older Star Trek film, The Wrath of Khan. The story follows Kirk, Spock and Bones going after a war criminal, John Harrison, after he attacks a meeting with Starfleet commanders with a jump ship. John Harrison then escapes to the Klingon homeworld Kronos, knowing full well that if Starfleet goes after him, they risk starting out a full war with the Klingons. But Admiral Marcus quietly tasks Captain Kirk to go there and kill John Harrison with some proton torpedoes anyway, hence the Enterprise embarked on this very risky mission. The story is nothing special, standard space military fare, but it's fairly interesting nonetheless. It also manages to make the supposedly good guy almost just as wicked as the actual bad guy. I think what will really hold your interest in these movies are the characters themselves, even though their development might be a little bit less noticeable than you might expect because of the movie's focus on pure action. Of course, the most interesting one is our main bad guy. I think you know who it is and who is played by. But before I continue, if you are a super die-hard bitch, please leave the room now. I'm not here to discuss about him as the sexiest man alive, blah blah blah. Just the quality of his role as the reimagining of one of the most iconic villains in Star Trek, Khan Noonien Singh. That said, Khan in this movie makes a far more interesting and in-depth villain than the first movie. Hence, this is an aspect that makes this movie marginally better than the first. He's interesting. You can empathize with him, even if you don't condone his extreme measures.
My crew is my family, Kirk. Is there anything you would not do for your family?
Benedict Cumberbatch brings his own spin to this reimagined character. He gave him a far more physical manners than the original played by Ricardo Montalban. However, if you ask me which Khan I prefer, it's the Ricardo Montalban one. I think it's because I like his theatrical approach to the character better, which gives him that more classical sinister charm. Maybe it's because his Native American casting is truer to Star Trek canon and more suitable for a villain that claims his species is superior to any other, instead of having the bad guy to be just another white guy, no racism intended. Maybe it's because every time I see this new Khan on screen, I keep hearing Cumberbatch screaming in my head that it's hard to concentrate on the character that he's trying to bring. Whatever the reason, Cumberbatches, if you're still here, Benedict Cumberbatch is not the only Khan. Do yourself a favor and go and see Wrath of Khan so you know what I'm talking about. That's the original classic. Then again, Cumberbatching aside, this new Khan is still a pretty good villain.
Ah, Kirk, my old friend. Do you know the Klingon proverb that tells us revenge is a dish that is best served cold?
Now, without spoiling anything, I didn't like how this movie ended. Without giving too much away, it's essentially a clone or Wrath of Khan, not a very good one, and a certain character goes out of character and becomes sort of invincible, straining a little bit of credulity. I am pretty sure it will piss off a lot of Trekkies. Star Trek Into Darkness is a solid action-packed entry to the rebooted Star Trek series, and is definitely slightly better than the previous Star Trek film. Yes, you can see that the series seems to be dumbed down to pure sci-fi action a little bit, but if you are willing to accept this movie as that, and ignore Cumberbatches from getting in the way of the enjoyment of the reimagined Khan, there's nothing that should prevent you from enjoying this movie as a regular sci-fi matinee entertainment. But it's also worth noting that Star Trek used to be more than dumb sci-fi action.
Don't move.
Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Like Mission Impossible 4, Paramount chose not to include the IMAX shots in this Blu-ray, unlike The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, which I find is a stupid decision. Instead, the whole film is presented in its 235 anamorphic widescreen. Guys, we have a 16:9 HD TV. If we can eliminate the black bars and for as many shots as possible, we should. We want to see more of the IMAX frames that you shot. Let them feel as much of a whole screen as much as possible. If Warner Brothers can do it with Batman, what's stopping you? Okay, IMAX rent aside, the video transfer itself is pretty sharp and detailed with a subtle layer of grain. Nothing much to complain about this transfer on a technical level. It's just that having seen the digital IMAX version in cinemas, I'm not a big fan of how shaky those IMAX shots are compared to The Dark Knight and Mission Impossible 4. It's quite disorienting on bigger screens. But otherwise, it's a pretty much a demo quality video transfer. If only they have included the damn IMAX shots. What can I say? This Dolby True HD 7.1 soundtrack is explosive. The opening action scene alone is enough to convince you of its quality. It's appropriately loud and crisp as you would expect from an action-oriented Star Trek film like this. Plenty of deep rattling bass in the subwoofer, crystal clear dialogue even in the action scenes, good immersive use of the surround channels. It's just an excellent soundtrack from start to finish. So overall, I think if you enjoyed the 2009 reboot and haven't seen the older Star Trek films before that movie, I think you will be fairly satisfied with this film. Maybe more so. But the whole Star Trek series seems to be dumbed down to this blow shit up Star Trek at this point. And you can't help but feel that if the filmmakers find this dumb action formula successful, they might continue to dumb down the series even more to get more audiences. And that's what concerns me. I'll confess, I'm not a Trekkie, but having seen some of the older films, I can definitely say that the old Star Trek is more than just about loud and colourful action. It's about space exploration, diplomacy, discovering new worlds, questioning ideas about humanity. I think the prime example of a Star Trek movie that balances action with interesting sci-fi ideas is Star Trek First Contact, which I highly recommend you go and see it on Blu-ray as well. It has a far more interesting concept and storyline. It delivers both on presenting ideas of humanity's future as well as delivering some spectacular action sequences and visual effects. And believe it or not, I find the practical visual effects of Star Trek First Contact to be superior to even the two recent CG-reliant Star Trek movies. Just look at this. Those who are looking for more exciting action sequences in their Star Trek movie will be satisfied with this one, and the video and audio quality on this Blu-ray is excellent. But I can't help but feel that this series is going to be dumbed down to a mindless sci-fi action movie franchise if it's going to continue to drift away from its thought-provoking era.